Tonight we have 5 presentations for you, and we're going to show you some things that you ideally can play with the moment you get home if you're so inspired. At least I know the thing I'm showing you is going to be like that. I know that all the rest of the speakers will do the same. And they're going to be very short, so 10-minute demos. We're going to get them done before 8 o'clock is the goal, so we can spend a little bit of time together before we have to leave. First, though, I want to thank Ramp for providing this amazing venue. I had a whole thing where I was going to show you that I flew up here on my Ramp card, but then I used the virtual card because it was so convenient. I left the physical card at home. So go Ramp. All right. Well, I'm going to get into the very first demo, which is for Flox. Show of hands, who has used Flox in this room? A few people. 1, 2. Oh, you work at Flox. A few people work. OK. So this is really good, because I'm going to give you the intro to Flox and talk about what it is and what it does. And if you'd used it, it might be a little bit boring for you. But I'm going to start with the fact that software is built on top of a whole lot of stuff. When we think about software development, we think about the code we write, primarily. But we don't spend a lot of time thinking about all the tools and libraries and frameworks and configuration that go along with that code that we have to lift and shift everywhere we bring our code. And every project we work with has its own obnoxious collection of stuff. And that stuff is usually different. You know, sometimes it's the same. Sometimes you have the same yellow square. But even when you do, you have a different color circle, right? Different dependencies. And sharing these environments can be really, really hard. Picking up this whole mountain of stuff and giving it to your colleague can be really, really hard. And recreating the past is even harder. If you want to work on a project and set it aside for 6 months and then pick it back up again, this can be a nightmare. Has anyone experienced this thing where they pick up this project from 6 months ago and it just doesn't work anymore and you have to spend a whole bunch of time figuring out how to get it to work again? Very challenging. And a lot of package managers that you use to install this software install things into the operating system level. So they take a package and they split up into a bunch of pieces and they put those pieces in bin and user include and user lib and all of our FHS defined directories. And what you end up with is this heterogeneous collection of just stuff inside of your operating system. And it's either installed or it's not. Your operating system can have one version of Node installed. You can use VMs and containers and all these tricks. But it's one version of Node that's installed in user bin. So there's like a contention, a point of contention in most operating systems. And uninstalling something means finding it and removing it and remembering where you put it, which is kind of a pain. And interdependency between applications make all these things a whole lot harder to use. So Flox does things a little bit differently. So Flox, instead of taking the package and splitting it up into 1 million pieces and putting it in your operating system, takes that package, splits it up into its 1 million pieces, and puts it into a very special place in your operating system called the NYC store. And then it weaves them together dynamically into the projects where you need them. So it's a different approach to managing software dependencies on your system. So Flox makes it really easy to build virtual environments, and I'd like to show you how. The way you use it is a lot of things you'd use in your regular package managers. Flox search, install, uninstall. But we've added a few extra commands. Init, because Flox environments live inside directories. Activate, because you have to be able to activate and deactivate them. And push and pull, so you can push it to Flox Hub and pull it down. And Flox environments have a manifest. When you create a Flox environment, you end up with a TOML manifest you can use to recreate that environment on a completely different system. So that when a new developer joins your team, this is what they do. They git clone your repo, cd into it, run Flox Activate, and they're ready to code with you. So if that was all quick for you, don't worry. I'm going to actually show how it works, if internet works. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a directory for my AI cow, because I'm making an AI cow today. There's nothing AI about it. I'm just calling it AI cow. So the first thing I run is Flox init. Because Flox environments live inside directories, you have to initialize the Flox environment. Flox tells us exactly what to do next, because it was designed for humans to use. And so it tells you the next thing you want to do is run Flox search, or Flox install, or Flox activate, or Flox edit. So let's do Flox search. And let's search for, anyone remember cowsay? Does this mean anything to anybody? Used to be an old, ancient Unix thing called cowsay. You give it some text, you give it an ASCII cow saying it. Real stupid. The Flox catalog has over 180,000 packages in it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's like 9 ways to make a cow say things to you in ASCII in the Flox catalog. It has everything else you need too, but it has 9 of these. So let's go ahead and install cowsay. Fortune kind, maybe. So it's installing these applications into the environment AI cow. Now it's installed, I can Flox list. If I can type. Flox list, see my 2 packages there. And if I try to run it, it doesn't work because I haven't activated yet. So let's type Flox activate. So you see how fast that was. I didn't start a virtual machine. I didn't start a container. This is a subshell. This is a subshell where all of my packages are now available. So now I can do Fortune pipe cow, say, and I have a fortune cookie speaking through an ASCII cow. Very fun. OK, so let's look at what we actually did here. Through Flox install command, we added 2 lines to our Flox manifest. But let's see what else is in this manifest. There's an install section, which contains the packages that are in my environment. There's a var section where I could set variables. It's a subshell. Why wouldn't I want to set variables in it? I definitely would. There's a hook that runs every time your environment activates, so you can do things like set up tasks. There's a profile section, so you can actually control what happens in the user's bash or fish or z shell. There's a services section where I could define a service with a really simple command, and then when I activate my environment, it starts the service, and when I control D out of that shell, it will shut down the service. So there's like a service lifecycle along with it, and you can include other environments as well. So that's a quick run of what the Flox Environment Manager does. Helps you gather together a bunch of software. One thing I'd like to show you also is that, so Flox is a pretty new product. It's a pretty new technology. None of the LLMs understand it yet. And so what I wanted to figure out is how quickly could I teach an LLM how to use something like Flox? And how much more successful will it be using something like Flox? Now, this is a video, and the reason it's a video is because while I was able to get Claude Code to use Flox pretty consistently, I wasn't able to get it to actually do the thing consistently. But I captured it here, and I want to sort of talk through what it is. So the first thing I did is I created a claude.md file. And this claude.md file is basically telling Claude how to use Flox. Here are the basic commands you want to use. Here are some critical rules that we need to follow, some common patterns for how to initialize environments, a little bit of information about service definition, and then finally at the very bottom, I tell it, if you want to learn about the manifest format, just run man and learn about it. And I found that to be very effective. So with just this information, I wanted to see if I could get Claude to set up a mono repo for me. So I asked it to create an app to generate memes from audience prompts and overlay text and do some kind of fun, wacky stuff. And the first thing it's doing is creating its plan, as you might expect. And then it's making a backend and a front-end directory and a directory for meme templates. It's initializing Flox environments in the backend, initializing Flox environments in the front end. You'll notice that I've sped it up a little bit from time to time, so keep an eye on that if you want to know if it's sped up. Now I'm installing a bunch of packages into my backend environment that I'm going to need, Python and a bunch of Python packages. Those are now installed. Now I'm installing Node into my front end. That's installed. Now it's going to do the hard work of actually writing the application, which I'm a lot less interested in. I'm more interested in how it deals with the different environments and its dependencies. But it's making a working app here. Let's give it a second to think about this. Making our index.html. Let me guess, style sheet's next. There we go. There's our style sheet. Now the next thing it's going to want to do after it's finished writing its application is it's going to want to figure out how to make it so that when you activate the Flox environment, these services start up. So that's the next thing it's going to try to figure out how to do. Oh, it's documenting. Thanks. Appreciate that. I like the documentation. Need a package.json file. That's fine. OK, here we're about to do the services stuff. So we're looking at the manifest for the backend Flox environment. We're adding one line that tells it how to start the backend. Oh, I had to tell it to use a relative path. It did it wrong the first time, and I'm telling it to use a relative path. Aside from that, it was generally pretty smooth. What we end up with here is two separate Flox environments with different dependencies, code within them, and service management. So I could take each of these environments now, check them into Git, and when I clone them on a different machine, it'll be the exact same operating environment. I'm a little over time, so I won't show you, but the app does actually work, not that it matters that much. What matters more is that it's made sane environments for both of these things. One thing that's kind of magical about this is I've been working on my Mac right now, making this manifest, and that materializes into native binaries on my Mac. When I copy it over to Linux, it will materialize into native binaries on Linux. So that's kind of a magical thing about Flox. All right, well, I'm over time, so let's move on to our next presenter, who is Miriam from, oh, I'm sorry, no, Derek. Derek from Vercel. I'm sorry, I got that wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. All right, I just chugged a Red Bull, so I'm ready to scream developers, developers, developers for 15 minutes. All right, can everybody see my screen? All right. There we go. All right. Go ahead and start my slideshow. All right, so for those of you who are unaware, I'm Derek. I'm from Vercel, and I like to start off by talking less about the lower level stuff, but more about just vibe coding in general. So I'm sure as engineers, we've all heard what the term vibe coding is. Essentially, it's a way where an AI essentially develops an app for you. But what we've noticed here with Vercel and V0, our latest sort of AI vibe coding product, is that it's not just engineers who are using AI to sort of vibe code. In fact, AI in V0 is essentially redefining the entire software development process from a product manager's perspective. So if you've ever had the experience where your product manager writes this giant PRD documentation, throws you into this meeting, and it's like, let's discuss this. Well, with the power of AI and vibe coding, what these PMs now do is they go straight to their users. Sometimes they get the feedback from the users, and immediately from that meeting, they go ahead and then use V0 to create a vibe-coded prototype to show to the user. So it really increases the iteration cycle. And in terms of working with different teams, I've had the pleasure, my team and I have had the pleasure of working from everything from Zapier to Fortune 500 companies to redefine what this workflow looks like. Now, that being said, right, why are PMs really choosing V0 as the vibe coding tool of choice? Well, one of the great things about V0 is that it's a website. You can access it immediately at v0.dev, and there's no installation. There's no need to set up a package manager. If your PM knows Git, well, they don't need to if they use V0, right? So that's all the power of V0. It's instant on. Another reason why, other than the better UI, UX, and not having to sort of set up an entire sort of dev environment, is simply the power of V0's model. So when it comes to a more user-friendly vibe coding tool, we want to ensure that you have the most accurate generations. And so behind V0 is our own composite model. So we've taken Claude and other sort of foundational models, and we've enhanced it with a bunch of existing data pipelines related to Vercel's expertise in developing websites. So that being said, that begs the question, what is that particular expertise? Well, V0 is about 15 times more accurate in creating error-free generations than the leading foundational models. The other thing to note is that V0 actually is kind of two models. There is one model that's generating the code, and there's another model that's actually reading the output of the code and catching any errors. And so that second model is about 10 to 40 times faster at catching these errors than existing models that are out there in the market. And this is also a tech stack that the V0 model is trained on that we know very well. So quick show of hands. Raise your hand. Everybody raise your hand. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of React. OK. Raise your hand if you've heard of Next.js. All right. Raise your hand if you've heard of ShadCN. All right. So very, very popular tech stacks. It is React, of course, is actually one of our core product officers. Our chief product officer was actually the founding member of the React team. Our CEO actually created Next.js. And ShadCN, which is the default, not only for V0 for the UI library, but also the default for ChatGPT and Claude Code as a UI library of choice. ShadCN is actually a Vercel employee. So we've taken our expertise in these core web technologies and developed a composite model based off of that. And so that really is the power of V0. And so to show you really the power of how fast V0 is, I'm going to go straight to my website. Also, another thing to note is that this entire slide deck, you've been seeing ShadCN the entire time, because this is actually a V0 chat. Now, going back to the original chat, I can't make Google Slides in 5 minutes, but what I can do is I can make an AI chatbot. So to show you sort of why PMs choose V0, as you can see, I'm going to reload this page, 0 setup, right? It's immediately loaded. And I'm going to go ahead and connect to my Figma instance. So I have Figma right here. I have this prototype. I'm going to copy this link. And now I'm just going to go ahead and enter my URL. So hopefully it should pull up the Figma link. All right, it pulled it up from Figma. I'm going to hit confirm. And I'm going to go ahead and say create an AI chatbot using the AI SDK. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. So what's going to do is going to create the chatbot from what you sort of see right here. And another thing to note while we're waiting for the AI to load, as I mentioned, V0 is pretty fast, but it still takes some time to load. Something to note is that V0 actually comes in a different form for engineers. So we understand that a lot of teams actually use Cursor. Sorry, wrong IDE. A lot of teams actually use Cursor. And V0 comes in API form that you can connect to with Cursor. So I'm going to go ahead and sort of show something right here and say, who are you? As you can see, V0 is now connected to Cursor as well. So we also really care about the engineering handoff when it comes to Vercel and V0. And so going back here, hopefully it's gone ahead and generate out the chat. What I've done is prior to this generation, I actually connected different environment variables. So it's connected to a project. And there's an OpenAI API key that's connected. And you'll see that V0 actually wrote out an API route. And so this is leveraging the power of Next.js and our power and expertise in these web technologies. And what you'll see is if I ask a question like, who is the first president of the US? You should say it's George Washington. So that's really how fast you can create a product and get feedback. And that's why product managers absolutely love using V0. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Derek. OK, up next is Miriam from AWS.
While we're waiting for this to get set up, sometimes silences are a little awkward, so if I can get a little like shh while we're waiting. Alrighty. So like Ross already mentioned, my name is Miriam Lebowitz. I'm a solutions architect at AWS, and I primarily work with our startups customers, especially our customers who are pre-seed to Series A. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how AWS can help you build out different agents. I'm going to give you a general overview of some of the AI/ML services that we have. I'm going to do a quick demo on one of the specific tools that we have available. And then I'm also going to make a couple quick announcements about some things that were just announced today and that are happening this week, which is very exciting.
Do you want to hit the spot displays button?
Oh, thank you so much. Let's see. Perfect. OK. Thanks for that call-up. Alrighty, so AWS has a variety of AI/ML tools, and the idea is that we can meet you wherever you're at. So if you're looking for tools that are right out of the box, we have those tools. And then if you're also looking for something to do some more DIY projects and have a little bit more control and customization, we also have tools like that. And one of the tools that you'll often hear about that we talk to a lot of our startups about is a service called Amazon Bedrock. Amazon Bedrock gives you access to an API to then access a variety of different foundation models. There's also tools to help you build out RAG workflows. For those of you who aren't familiar, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, and we refer to them as knowledge bases on Bedrock. We also have tools to help you build out agents. There's tools for evaluation and lots of other things as well. So like I said, one of the features of Amazon Bedrock is Amazon Bedrock Agents. With our agents feature, you'll be able to select a foundation model. You'll provide basic instructions through a system prompt to maybe give some context to your LLM about maybe a persona that it needs to have or other information it should have to be most helpful. You'll get to select relevant data sources by configuring that knowledge base that I mentioned. And then you can also specify available actions through different action groups and things like that. And then one of the other features that we have through agents is multi-agent collaboration. So if you need to use a variety of agents working together, there's ways to configure that as well. Now, we do want to acknowledge that there are a ton of tools out there that can help with building agents. And a lot of them are trying to tackle different aspects of the process that can be very challenging. But we do recognize that overall it can be a little challenging. It can be a little frustrating, especially when you're switching between different formats and different frameworks and things like that, and you have to relearn all of them. So one of the new things that we have, and it looks like this is being a little slow to load, is something called Strands Agents. So Strands Agents is an open source Python SDK for building agents using just a few lines of code. And for a little bit of context, Strands Agents SDK was developed by our Amazon Q developer team. And by using this SDK, they're able to build and launch agentic products that previously took months to build. They're now able to do it much, much faster. The idea behind Strands Agents is that it was built for developers, so it's a simple code-first solution to building AI agents. It embraces reasoning capabilities, and then it also still gives you the power of model and deployment choice that Amazon Bedrock is known for. A couple of other things to note about Strands Agents and why it's beneficial is one, that model choice. And I do want to mention that it'll give you access to models that you'll typically see through Amazon Bedrock, but you can also configure custom model providers. So if you're using a model from another provider, I'm sure we know of lots of other provider names out there, there's also ways to configure that so you can use this across all of those different providers. It's also highly flexible, so there are some safeguards with guardrails. There's also observability that's built into it. You get monitoring, you get evaluation, things like that. And then there's tons of tools that can be plugged into this too. So one of the nice features about it is that there are some pre-configured tools that are already part of the SDK, and then you can also configure your own. If you've heard about MCP, there's MCP integrations. You can do coordination between multiple agents and lots of other things as well. And then there's other integrations as well. Because it was built by AWS, we're already thinking about how you can integrate with other AWS services, as well as other services and offerings. So if you're familiar on the evaluation side, the Ragas framework is an open source framework. So there's integrations with that, and also things like Langfuse for the observability as well. Alrighty, I've talked a ton, so let's actually see some things beyond just some slides. So what I've done is I have a little chatbot. I'm sure this type of interface is very familiar for y'all. I'm just going to ask a couple quick questions of this LLM from this chatbot, and then I'll show you behind the scenes what this looks like. So first off, who are we talking to? So we're going to do a quick hello. And we see that we're talking to Gus. And for a little bit of context, Gus has been trained on some information around video game sales. And so I want to grab a little bit more information around some reviews. Before we do that, let's get a little information about the structure of our data. So it's going to give us a sense of some data that was stored in one of our databases. In this case, we were using an Aurora database. And so we see some information about that. And then I'm going to ask just one more question about which developers tend to get the best reviews. And we're going to get this response in 3 different formats. We're going to get it in a natural language format. We'll also see kind of what might be in our database, and then we're also going to get a graph as well. And all of this is being pulled by our LLM. So we see this natural language answer. That first one is Nintendo EAD Tokyo. If you're a video game fan, feel free to form your own opinions about that. We see the actual data. So if we wanted to have kind of the human in the loop there, we can verify some of that information. And then we also see this chart here as well with some of that information. Alrighty, so jumping into the IDE. So before you get started, you will have to install Strands. It's just a quick pip install. And then you'll also install some other things related to Strands tools and things like that. The key things here is that you're going to need this import statement in order to use this SDK. And then some things that are helpful about this is that then when you are initializing the agent, it's a little bit more straightforward than what you may have seen before. So we can see this initialization. And then we can also see highlighted here in the tools. I recognize this may be a little hard to see on the screen, but they're in different colors. And the reason for that is the ones that are in yellow are ones that I've defined. And then the one that's in white is one that came as part of the SDK and was already built in. And then if we go to the Strands documentation, you'll also see information about all the different model providers that you can work with, and then also see more information about these built-in features around observability, metrics, traces, and lots of other features. Now, I'm running on a little short on time, so there are 2 other quick things that I want to mention really quickly. One is that in addition to the announcement about Strands agents, if you follow AWS at all, there was an announcement today that we have a new agentic IDE called Hero that's currently in preview. So if you've seen anything with this little ghost logo, that's referring to Hero, and so this can help build out different agents. There's a feature to be able to chat and say, hey, I want to build similar to other offerings that you may have seen. You can also connect different MCP servers as well with that. And then the one other last thing that I did want to mention is that this is a very big week for AWS. We do have our New York Summit, which is happening tomorrow. Unfortunately, registration has closed, but I would recommend if you follow our YouTube channels and things like that, there will be lots of new announcements coming out. So some of the things that I touched on today, like Amazon Bedrock and Strands agents and Hero, a lot of those topics may be coming out, and there may be more information coming out shortly. That's everything that I have today, so thank you to everyone for listening.
Awesome. Thank you, Miriam. Up next, we have Sherman from Profound. What do we think so far of these demos? Are they too fast? Too much of a fire hose? Too slow? OK. Excellent.
Testing? Oh, cool. OK, I'm live. Oh, not bad. We'll just quickly connect here. I'm going to take things in a bit of a different direction while we wait for this to connect. Oh, I think I'm live. OK, cool. Yeah, I'm going to take things in a bit of a different direction here. While what I'm sharing with you guys today, you might not be able to go home and use tonight, I think I'll be leaving you all with something to ponder about. So let's get started. All right, so hi, everyone. Again, my name is Sherman. I'm working at this company called Profound, which I'll jump into. And I'm going to be talking more about how we use like AI engineering to build our product instead. So let's just jump right into it. So first, just a bit about myself. So I've been a software engineer at Profound for about the last 3 months. Before this, I was at Datadog. I was there for about 2 years on their high-performance transaction systems team. Got some Datadogs in the house over there. There we go. And then, yeah, before that, I'm a proud U Waterloo alum. Interests went from early stage startups to big tech, but my heart was like always in startups, and I just knew that. And then outside of work, I'm a bit of an NYC poster boy. I do all the cliches loud and proud. I run, play a lot of tennis, and I DJ. So enough about me, though. Let's talk about Profound. So Profound's like a really early company. We've been around for about a year, and essentially, with like LLMs becoming more and more popular, one big question that brands have is, how do I show up in these LLM responses? And that's exactly what we're trying to solve for marketers right now. So there's essentially 3 main pillars, or actually rather 4 main pillars to Profound. The first 3 like revolving around like data collection and insights. And then the last one being us kind of bringing that data together to like kind of paint a story and give you recommendations and actions on how to improve your visibility. So first, starting with the 3 main data collection insights, one of the first questions that we aim to answer is like, how are agents like interacting with like my web content? So how are they like scraping my, my blog posts or like anything I post on the internet? How are they using that information to talk about my brand? Another thing that we try to answer is like, well, like how does my brand actually show up in these AI responses? And then lastly, the third like pillar of our data collection is like, what is the world talking to AI about? And then, well, we've been doing a really great job at these 3 things, and then recently we've decided to move on to like the next act of like our company, which is taking these 3 data points and like data sets, and then putting it together to build again like a cohesive story on like how you can improve your AI visibility in your company. Okay, so I'm going to dive deep into one of these aspects today, which is the Conversation Explorer. So I'm like the product owner and the team lead for the Conversation Explorer. And essentially, what the Conversation Explorer is, it gives marketers real volume estimates on what people are asking LLMs in like the last few months. So this is pretty insane. Like we're working with hundreds of millions of prompts per month from across 1 million of active users. And as a result, we're able to track around like 250 million keywords on a week-to-week basis. This is really important because this is actually like one of the first of its kind in the AEO world that's like answer engine optimization. This tool exists for search engine optimization, but it's a whole different ballgame we're playing here. Because now it's not as simple as searching on Google. It's like we're talking to ChatGPT, we're talking to other LLM providers, and like we need to. It's like a completely different experience for users when they interact with these compared to the traditional search. Another thing that I want to call out here that like I actually don't share in the slides is like we actually have like we like procured the largest data panel of conversations across the world, except for like the major like LLM providers. So like you can like if you know another company that has more data on the conversations that people have, please show me. Like we'll invest in them. So again, this is like quite an amazing feat. You know, kind of like done by Profound, and it's like modern. Like it couldn't have been possible without like the modern data technologies. So over here we're using ClickHouse, we're using Modal, we're using dbt, so like we're using Snowflake and we're Milvus and all that kind of stuff. And we work like really closely like with these partners, and like we're always piloting like their new beta features in order for us to like kind of like be on the cutting edge of like working with like a bunch of different data points and a large data set. So I think with that being said, there's no better way to rather just jump into a demo and show you what we're all about. So I'm going to hop into the Profound platform, and essentially like what we're looking at here is again like my piece of the platform. I own the Conversations Explorer, and the way in which like we like kind of like tested and like really like back tested our like results and make sure that everything made sense was like basically with just going through like some of like the big recent events and then checking if like they got searched more frequently or if we project that they got searched more frequently in ChatGPT. So like, for example, one of my favorite examples is like I'll go ahead and like search up like Jony Ive. So for those who don't know, he founded IO, and then IO got acquired by OpenAI. And then like lo and behold, we're able to like kind of like accurately project that like during that week in which that news came out, we can like tell you that like with confidence that we were able to notice a like large like influx of like data or like rather conversations that included Jony Ive. We can go all day with these. So like I don't know if you guys want to even share like a recent event. We can even talk about Alexander Wang. Like recently, for those who don't know, Meta acquired Scale AI, and then we can kind of see like exactly when that happened, and around that time period, like there was a large influx of like searches of Alexander Wang in the in that space. But obviously, our marketers are not like searching up like who Alexander Wang is on this platform. They're not really searching up like Memorial Day weekend or anything like that. Like companies such as like NVIDIA, for example, are interested in searching up like, well, how many times have people been talking about like NVIDIA GPUs in the last couple of months? And then more importantly, they want to see like what kind of questions are like people asking about like in our actual conversations data set. So like essentially like this is like a really good, actually this happened really fast. I was going to explain why this took a while, but it just happened in front of me. But essentially like what we're doing here is like a very classic example of something called RAG. So what we're doing essentially is we're taking the NVIDIA GPU keyword, we're embedding it, we're performing a vector search against our vector database called Milvus. We're using Milvus right now. And then from the output of that, we'll get a bunch of relevant prompts. So these are the prompts that you're seeing here. But before we display that to the user, we're sending it off to OpenAI to do some like sanitizing and normalizing of these data so that like our marketers can make sense of this essentially. So basically like as a result, like we're able to like, kind of like give marketers insights into the type of questions that like people are asking ChatGPT, and then now people have a better idea of like what to optimize for. So for example, like from this example directly, like maybe NVIDIA should start looking deeper into maybe running prompts that have to do with like running modern like AAA games. Maybe this even means that they should like release some sort of like blog post revolving around like the fact that like NVIDIA GPUs can run the best modern like AAA games, for instance. So yeah, that's kind of like all I wanted to share on that front for now. And then I kind of want to talk about like what has it taken to get here and like what's next. Okay, so this has been a bit of like a wild story. It's been going on for about like 3-4 months now. It's been like this has been like the work of like a bunch of engineers dedicated to like their craft, working day in and day out like on this platform. And like again, I was like a platform engineer at Datadog. Now I'm like kind of like a product owner and a team lead over here at Profound. It's been like quite the story. We have like lots of crazy hiring stories where we're like chasing people on Twitter, begging them to like come join the company for a couple of days, and then trying to convert them into like an actual full-time lead. I'm sure if you guys are at startups, you can imagine what the struggles are like. But I'm really proud of like what we got going on so far. And like the next steps for now is like in the near term, just like the simple things like adding more regions. Currently, we only show data for like America, but we're working on like getting more data from like Perplexity, Claude, Meta AI, Google AI overviews, like all that kind of stuff. We want to get better at like showing more demographic breakdowns and then solidify our data pipelines. And then like more long term, like it really gets beautiful when you can start like integrating other parts of the platform into one another. And we've been doing that so far, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement on how we kind of like, help people like make better actions based on the conversation data that we have on us. And then like lastly, like again, like no one has done this yet. So I feel like one of the longer term things that we're trying to work on is understand like, okay, like how do we take this to the next level, and how do we like make this really relevant when it comes to optimizing for like your answer engines instead of just like that regular SEO improvements? Like this is like a whole other game. So this has been on my mind a lot. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to my talk. One last thing before you guys all clap. Quick plug, like we're hiring aggressively. We're looking for people day in and day out. We have we have a really lean team of engineers obsessed with their craft, and like it's been like an honor to be like working with these guys. And like even like right now, like I have people like arguing about like the making everything pixel perfect on the screen. And like if that's the kind of person you are, really like dedicated to like making a really clean product and like honestly building a generational business, or what I think is a generational business, like feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Sherman. I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, home stretch. Thank you, Sherman. We have one more presenter from Superblocks. Jesse from Superblocks is going to present, and then we'll be done.
Do you know how my mic's already on? You guys got me. Cool. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Jesse. I lead product at Superblocks. One sec. It looks like it doesn't want to show my screen here. Are we good? OK. Cool. So today I'm going to be telling you a bit about the Superblocks platform. I'm going to show you a demo of using Clark, our AI agent, to generate an application. But first, let me give you some background on Superblocks. So we all know about vibe coding, thanks to Derek, who introduced vibe coding earlier today. But Superblocks is enterprise vibe coding for internal apps specifically. What we're trying to do is democratize development across the organization so that domain experts in product teams and operations teams can build software to solve their own problems. And what we believe is the way that you achieve that is first you need to centralize governance in order to democratize that development. So when you use the Superblocks platform, first you connect to all of your data sources centrally inside of your VPC. So you can connect to any of your databases, your internal APIs, your AI models, whatever it may be. Then you lay the foundation with connecting to your users and groups through Okta or Entra or whatever your IDP may be. You sync your audit logs and your analytics and your observability through pipelines out to your providers of your choice. You hook up to your design system, so bring in your component libraries, your themes, your tokens, so that every app looks great. And that means once you have all of this platform governance set up, your end users or your developers across your team can go build these apps for all of their business-specific use cases, and everything is governed centrally. And so what we have at Superblocks is we have Clark, who's the first AI agent to build internal enterprise apps. So Clark generates applications on the Superblocks platform, which means that all of the apps that Clark generates are on those rails, unlike ungoverned code that vibe coding tools may spit out. So this integrates with your business systems, keeps data inside of your VPC. The code is clean, verifiable using your design system and coding standards. Every generation is going to have your organization-specific context. So a lot of what we're doing is like context engineering around what the organization governance and standards are that you've set up here. So your RBAC, your PII rules, your design systems, your validation rules. And then this is all configured and auditable by your IT team and your platform admins. So maybe let's talk really briefly on the Clark AI architecture and how this is different from what you may see out there in the market with AI coding tools. So the first thing that happens when you go and prompt Clark is we're going to use Prompt Guard and Meta's open standards to do security validation on the prompt, make sure that there's no malicious prompting there. Then we're going to inherit the builder's access controls. I'll show you guys how builders kind of have governed access to data sources in Superblocks. Then we're going to enrich the prompt with your standards and guardrails, your integration metadata, your database schemas, your REST API, Open API specs, your GraphQL specs, your design systems, your users and groups and roles, and any libraries you have set up. Then we're going to call the LLM, and we're going to do deterministic validation based on the response of that LLM using a semantic understanding of what the actual code is that's supposed to be generated in Superblocks based, again, on your organization governance. Finally, we're going to go through an agentic loop, and we're going to return an app to you. And what's extremely unique about Superblocks is not only do you have this AI generation layer, but you also can edit everything visually with a fully featured low-code visual editor. So what we believe is, AI tools are really great for getting you 90% of the way there, but it's not always the most intuitive way to express your intent as a builder, right? Sometimes you need the precision of being able to go edit the code, and for those that are non-technical or less technical, editing the code is not an option, right? So you need all three layers in order to build with Superblocks. So you can generate with AI, you can edit visually in a fully featured visual editor, and then you can extend infinitely with code. We're just generating a React project under the hood. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and I'll jump in, and I have a video today because the demo gods weren't cooperating with me, but I'm going to talk over this because normally I would be narrating. Okay, so in this video, I'm first going to prompt Clark here. Sorry, let me turn off my volume. I'm going to say build a claims admin for our operations team to review claims filed by customers, pulling claims from Databricks SQL, display recent claims, and allow user to approve, reject, or accept a claim, I think. And so Clark generates. I'm just going to pause for a second there. That chat would obviously take much longer. It's a full app generation. And we get back this application, and now we go and iterate on this app, right? So this is the app that we asked for. We can see that the filters are all wired up properly, right? We can edit, we can filter the data. Then we can drill in. We can view the details of a particular claim. And we maybe notice that the layout here of these buttons is not exactly what we want, right? So what we can do is we can go into the properties panel. We can drag and drop the layout of these buttons, right? We want the approved claim to be on the far right. We want this to be a secondary and this to be a tertiary button. And then maybe we're going to notice there's too much padding here. We're going to align the things right. We're going to change the style of the container to have no style there. And now we're pretty happy with the output here, right? So we're able. And then what we can also do is under the hood, as I mentioned, we're just generating React code, right? So we can actually go and edit the React code. And what is not available, no other vendor in the market has, is we have this two-way live syncing between visual and code. In the background, we're basically processing a full abstract syntax tree of the React project that's using our framework and our visual editor. And so this allows us to collaborate, where a developer can go in their IDE. This is Cursor in this case. We can go make changes to the code here. So I'm going to go drop in a custom component that I've built. I'm going to save these changes, and we'll flip back to the UI here. We'll see that the map component has showed up here immediately. And then also this map component, it has a properties panel. So any component that you build in custom React and bring from your design system, you can also hook into the Superblocks visual editor. Now I can edit this component visually. So I can click a button on on these pins. I can wire the actions here from clicking that button up to the Superblocks visual editor to other components. I can share state. So I want to open a modal that shows the details, I think, when I click that, and that's what we get. So what we believe that we're working towards here is kind of the ideal layer for collaboration with AI tools on building these enterprise-grade internal apps, right? You have the ability to generate with AI, get 90% of the way there, edit visually, and then continue to edit in code in React, and that gives you infinite extensibility and no lock-in to our platform. So yeah, that's what I got here, and thanks for checking it out. And if you want to come talk to me, we are also, so Clark is in alpha right now, pretty early stage, but you can sign up for the preview and get early access. And then we're also hiring down the street, so if you want to come talk to us, I'd be happy to have you. Thanks for watching.
Good? You good? Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us today for this Activate event. That was our last presentation. We have the space for about another 40 minutes, so we can mingle and talk. You can find the speakers that just talked. You can ask them questions there if you'd like. Before we do that, I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of our sponsors and partners that helped us put on this event tonight. Flox, the company I work for, was one of them. Superblocks, who you just heard from, was another. Ramp, of course, providing this amazing venue. Thank you to Ramp for that. AWS, thank you. Thank you for coming and being here with us tonight. Vercel, thank you for being here with us tonight. And Profound, thank you so much. Thanks to everybody who helped us put this on. We'll be out there for the next 40 minutes or so, so come find us. Ask us questions about what you heard tonight. And again, thanks for spending your Tuesday night with us. Appreciate you.